and join congregational conversations today. Flower Communion will be coming up in May. Service will be on May 2nd. The flower exchange will be the day before on May 1st. You can find more information in the happenings email. We are also looking for a volunteer to help with the happenings. If you have any email blast experience, it's preferred, but we're willing to train. If you are interested in helping with the happenings, please contact me at admin@vuu.org. Again, that's Laura at admin@vuu.org. Have a wonderful day.
Good morning and welcome to Valley Unitarian Universalist Congregation, where love is our doctrine, the quest of truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. I'm Melanie Clunan-Schulte, one of the worship associates at VUU. And to open our service today in the most pretentious way possible, I'd like to quote Socrates. I say that it is the greatest good for a man to discuss virtue every day and those other things about which you hear me conversing and testing myself and others, for the unexamined life is not worth living. Socrates purportedly said this at his trial for impiety and corrupting youth. Two things our guest in the pulpit, Dr. Todd Robinson, has also been accused of, albeit less formally. Todd Robinson earned his PhD in English at the University of Nebraska, where he studied with US Poet Laureate Ted Kooser. He has won an Academy of American Poets Prize, regularly conducts writing workshops, and has published 2 books of poetry. He is an assistant professor at the University of Nebraska, Omaha. Today, he'll be reading poems from his book, Mass for Shut-ins, as well as some new pieces in which he uses his own struggles and self-assessments as a prism into the human struggle and the stubborn persistence of suffering, even in the midst of privileged circumstances. He's been dubbed the Neruda of Nebraska, and novelist and cultural commentator Kurt Anderson has said that his poems manage to be cheerful even when they're heartbreaking. I hope that as we join together this morning, the strength of community will help you find cheer in your own heartbreak and meaning in your own self-examination. And now, if you are lighting a chalice at home, draw it near. And say with me the words by which we symbolically light our chalice together. We kindle this flame, symbol of our faith, for the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of love, which calls us to work for justice.
Good morning, everyone. I am Marcy Bowden, your Director of Faith Formation Ministry. If you have any children in your house, now is the time to start gathering them around your device for our story time, read to us today by Haley, our assistant. So a reminder that Pastoral Care Associate this week is Janet Cantley. You can reach them via the email pastoralcare@vuu.org, or if you want to send a private chat while we're on Zoom, click on their name in the message window below. At first it'll say everyone, but then if you look below it, it's in alphabetical order and you'll be looking for Janet Cantley. Please remember that the chat is restricted during the prayer and meditation and the sermon. So feel free to post your joys and concerns before and after those parts of the service. So our book today is A Chair for My Mother. This story is told in the voice of a young girl and touches on themes of family life, saving, hard work, and hardship. The family and the community demonstrate responsibility for each other by collaborating to reach a goal. Enjoy.
A Chair for My Mother by Vera Williams. My mother works as a waitress in the Blue Tile Diner. After school, sometimes I go to meet her there. Then her boss, Josephine, gives me a job too. I wash the salt and pepper shakers and fill up the ketchups. When I finish, Josephine says, "Good work, honey," and pays me. And every time I put half my money into the jar. It takes a long time to fill a jar this big. Every day when my mom comes home from work, I take down the jar. My mom empties all her change from tips out of her purse for me to count. Then we push all the coins into the jar. Some days she has a lot of tips, and some days she only has a little. Then she looks worried. But each evening, every single shiny coin goes into that jar. We sit in the kitchen to count the tips. Usually Grandma sits with us too. While we count, she likes to hum. Often she has money in her old leather wallet for us. When we can't get a single other coin into the jar, we're going to take out all the money and go buy a chair. Yes, a chair. A wonderful, beautiful, soft armchair. We're going to get the best chair in the whole world. That is because our old chairs burned up. There was a big fire in our other house, and all of our chairs burned, and so did our sofa and everything else. It wasn't too long ago, my mother and I were coming home from buying new shoes. We were walking to our house from the bus, and we were looking at everyone's tulips. She was saying she liked the red ones, and I said I liked the yellow ones. Then we came to our block. Right outside our house stood 2 big fire engines. I could see lots of smoke, and tall orange flames came out of the roof. All the neighbors stood in a bunch across the street. Mom grabbed my hand and we ran. My Uncle Sandy saw us and ran to us. Mom yelled, "Where's Mother?" I yelled, "Where's my grandma?" My Aunt Ida waved and shouted, she's here, and she's okay. Grandma was all right, and so was our cat. But everything else in our whole house was spoiled. What was left of the house was turned to charcoal and ashes. We were able to move to the apartment downstairs. We painted the walls yellow. The floors were all shiny, but the rooms were very empty. The first day we moved in, the neighbors brought us pizza and cake and ice cream, and they brought a lot of other things too. The family across the street brought us a table and 3 chairs. The older man next door gave us a bed from when his children were little. My other grandpa brought us his beautiful rug, and my mother's sister, Sally, made us red and white curtains. Mom's boss, Josephine, brought pots and pans, silverware and dishes, and my cousin brought me her own stuffed bear. Everyone clapped when my grandma made a speech. "You are all the kindest people," she said, "and we thank you very much. It's lucky we are young and we can all start over." That was last year, but we still have no sofa and no big chairs. When Mom comes home, her feet hurt. "There's no good place for me to take a load off my feet," she says. And when Grandma wants to sit back and hum and cut up potatoes, she has to get as comfortable as she can on a hard kitchen chair. But now the jar is full. My mother brought home little paper wrappers for the nickels and the dimes and the quarters. I counted them all out and wrapped them all up. On my mother's day off, we took all the coins down to the bank. The bank exchanged them for $10 bills, and then we took the bus downtown to shop for our chair. We looked all over until we finally found the chair we were all dreaming of, and the money in the jar was enough to pay for it. We called Aunt Ida and Uncle Sandy, and they came down right away in their pickup truck to help us drive the chair home. Now Grandma sits in it and talks with people going by in the daytime. Mom sits down and watches the news on TV when she comes home from her job. And after supper, I sit with her and she can reach right up and turn off the light if I fall asleep on her lap.
Hey,
Good morning.
good morning.
I have my children with me this morning. I'm Katie Seifert, the Director of Music Ministries here. This is, who are you? Stone and
Lucy.
and we welcome you. I'm glad you are here, and we are glad to be with you. Before we listen to Todd Robinson's poetry of the examined life, let's remember who we are and whose lives, both messy and grand, that came before us. Please join us in singing number 1051 in our teal hymnal if you have it. We are.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. Oh, for each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. Oh, for each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage, fathers of time, daughters of dust, and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy, brothers of love, lovers of life, and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth, keepers of faith, makers of peace, and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage, fathers of time, daughters of dust, and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy, brothers of love, lovers of life, and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are one. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage.
Well, I've already welcomed you this morning to our service, but this is the part of our service where we designate time to make a special point of asserting that we are a welcoming congregation. We do this historically because in the 1980s, it was recognized that for many in the LGBTQ community, church was often not a place of acceptance. The Unitarian Universalist Association responded with a call to make our congregations welcoming to this community. Today, we expand our radical welcome to include everyone, recognizing that even with the best intentions, there are many overt and subtle cues that can make someone feel that they are not part of the in-group. And we continue to strive to be a place where plurality of ideas, racial and ethnic backgrounds, religious backgrounds, and personal characteristics enrich our community, where everyone really does feel that they belong. We always make a point to recognize newcomers as well and say that if you are with us for the first or second time, you are especially welcome. And we would love for you to join us again and get to know us better, particularly since our interim minister, Fred Wooden, is out of the pulpit today. So we invite you back when he is with us. Our guest in the pulpit today is whom I credit with introducing me to Unitarian Universalism. Todd and I were two atheists at a Jesuit university who found each other. When he and his wife Cheryl were about to get married, my husband and I were also engaged. And when Todd and Cheryl announced that they had found a place to get married that seemed enough like church to appease Catholic relatives, but did not require allegiance to doctrines we couldn't pretend to believe in, I had to check it out. The first Sunday I attended the First Unitarian Church of Omaha, the minister was on sabbatical. The church president got up with a giant wood cross and deadpanned that he had found this while cleaning the church storage room and they had better get rid of it before Reverend Knapp got back. I was hooked. I started attending, and after just a few Sundays, I knew that I had found my people. Reverend Knapp officiated at both Todd and Cheryl's wedding and my own. When he retired after 20 years at First Unitarian, he gave a concluding sermon entitled, "I Believed the Poets," in which he noted that he had quoted frequently from poetry in his sermons over the years because, quote, "The poets, if they are good poets, have no doctrines to defend, no dogmas to promulgate, no orthodoxy to defend. Poetry, if it is good poetry, accepts the whole world, warts and all. It accepts the pain as well as the joy, death as well as life. The poet, if he is a good poet, wants to accept the world and the universe as it is, without delusion, without wishful thinking, to accept it and to love it." Poetry's had something of a moment after Amanda Gorman delivered a star turn at the presidential inauguration in January, but most poets these days toil in obscurity and few books of poetry make the bestsellers list. I hope that today, during National Poetry Month, you will see some of what Reverend Knapp saw in poetry. In the solace it provides in dark times, the doors to greater understanding of our fellow sufferers it opens. And now is the time when we gratefully accept the offering. When I was in second grade, a businessman came to our class, maybe as part of a junior achievement kind of program, and had us say ideas of what we might do with $1 million. After lots of kids offered lots of things they would like to buy, I raised my hand and said, "Donate it to people who need money." And with a twinkle in his eye, the guest said, "Oh, a philanthropist." I tried to remember the word until I could look it up later in the dictionary, since this was the pre-smartphone era. And ever since, I've tried to keep that spirit of philanthropy. That classroom was in Omaha, Nebraska, where Todd Robinson comes to us from today via Zoom, and where the most well-known philanthropist, billionaire Warren Buffett, lives. In his giving pledge, Buffett wrote, "Too often a vast collection of possessions ends up possessing its owner. The asset I most value, aside from health, is interesting, diverse, and long-standing friends." Todd has been that for me, as have many in this community. In giving to VUU, we invest in a community of interesting, diverse, and long-standing friendships, as well as social justice causes and faith formation for the next generation. You can text your donation or mail it. Thank you for your generosity.
Now is our time for centering. Let's all take a moment and shake out the past week. Maybe this morning, whatever stress or joys may distract you, and take in a deep breath, releasing all that is behind us so that we may fully arrive to this present moment. Let's all breathe in and breathe out. Please join in singing our hymn, "We Laugh, We Cry." If you have your gray hymnal, it is number 354.
We need to feel there's something here to which we can belong. We need to feel the freedom just to have some time alone. But most of all, we need close friends we can call our very own. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a need to be together. We have our hearts to give. We have our thoughts to receive. And we believe that sharing is an answer. We seek elusive answers to the questions of this life. We seek to put an end to all the waste of human strife. We search for truth, equality, and blessed peace of mind. And then we come together here to make sense of what we find. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a joy being together. And in our search for peace, maybe we'll finally see, even to question truly is an answer.
Good morning. We'll begin today's meditation with a poem by Naomi Shihab Nye to calibrate our ears, our minds, our hearts. Kindness. Before you know what kindness really is, you must lose things. Feel the future dissolve in a moment like salt in a weakened broth. What you held in your hand, what you counted and carefully saved, all this must go, so you know how desolate the landscape can be between the regions of kindness. How you ride and ride, thinking the bus will never stop. The passengers eating maize and chicken will stare out the window forever. Before you learn the tender gravity of kindness, you must travel where the Indian in a white poncho lies dead by the side of the road. You must see how this could be you, how he too was someone who journeyed through the night with plans and the simple breath that kept him alive. Before you know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. You must wake up with sorrow. You must speak it till your voice catches the thread of all sorrows and you see the size of the cloth. Then it is only kindness that makes sense anymore. Only kindness that ties your shoes and sends you out into the day to gaze at bread. Only kindness that raises its head from the crowd of the world to say, "It is you I have been looking for," and then goes with you everywhere, like a shadow or a friend. We live inside dichotomies. Kobayashi Issa wrote centuries ago, "All the time I pray to Buddha, I keep on killing mosquitoes." Now let's see if today we may begin to integrate these two sides of ourselves, the kind and the cruel, the parent and the child, the body and the mind, hope and despair. So get comfortable, close your eyes, take in a deep breath. and release it. Now imagine that you are an enlightened being, a fully realized soul, one who is utterly at home in the world, filled with empathy and compassion, and a sense of the inexpressible oneness of all creation. When you're close to that space, that stillness, I want you to remember a short walk you've taken many times before. A walk around the block, from your car to a store, a walk to the Unitarian Universalist shrine that is so important to you. Any walk you've taken many times. And I want you to see again with wonder what you have perhaps begun to ignore from its unremarkable reoccurrence in your life. Take that walk in your mind from its beginning to its end, perceiving whatever you see with affection, with a sense of its kinship with yourself. Move from small objects such as wildflowers or potted plants, from produce aisles or street signs, to large vistas, cities, nations, galaxies, nebulae. And then return to small objects. See yourself too, scratching an itch, or getting hungry, or grinning over the world. Be at once honest and visionary. Allow into yourself a genuine love for the world, a compassion for your fellow beings, a spirit that transcends the petty concerns of the ordinary ego. When you next make this walk, may you radiate kindness to everything and everyone you see, knowing your place in the infinite tableau is but an iota of a grandeur you cannot claim to contain or explain, for it contains and explains you. Jane Hirschfield, in her book 9 Gates, Entering the Mind of Poetry, makes the following claims for art. Immersion in the life of the world, the willingness to be inhabited by and speak for others, including those beyond the realm of the human. These are the practices not just of Bodhisattva, but of the writer. The life of the threshold can lead to both permeability and knowledge, offering, in Dogen's phrase, a way to study the self, forget the self, and awaken into the 10,000 beings. Thank you.
When I was a girl, each week we would go to church and pay attention to the priest. He would read the holy word and consecrate the holy bread, and everyone would kneel and bow. Today the only difference is everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. When I was in Sunday school, we would learn about the time Moses split the sea in two. Jesus Jesus made the water wine. And I remember feeling sad that miracles don't happen still. But now I can't keep track, 'cause everything's a miracle. Everything's a miracle. Wine from water is not so small, but an even better magic trick is that anything is here at all. So the challenging thing becomes not to look for miracles, but finding where there isn't one. When holy water's rare at best, it barely wets my fingertips. But now I have to hold my breath, like I'm swimming in a sea of it. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second rate hand me down. But I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. Read a questioning child's face and say it's not a testament. That'd be very hard to say. See another new morning come and say it's not a sacrament. I tell you that it can't be done. This morning outside I stood and saw a little red-winged bird shining like a burning bush, singing like a scripture verse, and made me want to bow my head. I remember when church let out how things have changed since then. Everything is holy now. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second rate hand me down. But I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. Everything is holy now.
Hello, Valley Unitarian Universalist community. It is such an honor to be with you this morning. Special thanks to my dear friend Melanie, with whom I have danced, dined, gamed, sparred, golfed, and enjoyed many other activities over these years. 30 years, give or take. May we be given 30 more, old friend. Today, I'll speak to you a little bit of poetry, of the examined life, perhaps obliquely, as poetry often does. In Can Poetry Matter? Essays on Poetry in American Culture, Dana Gioia writes that as a class, poets are not without cultural status. Like priests in a town of agnostics, they still command a certain residual prestige. While this wry observation rings quite true, I neither read nor write poetry for what scant prestige it may confer. Poetry's work, Jane Hirschfield explains, is the clarification and magnification of being. Each time we enter its word-woven and musical invocation, we give ourselves over to a different mode of knowing, to poetry's knowing, and to the increase of existence it brings, unlike any other. Here, as elsewhere in life, attentiveness only deepens what it regards. I share these lines with you in the hopes that the poetry you hear today will nudge you toward an increase of existence, perhaps to read and possibly even write a poem today or tomorrow, to enlarge and intensify what is possible in our consciousness that can be so colonized by obligation and worry, by getting and spending. I'll begin with 3 poems from my most recent book, Mass for Shut-ins. It is filled with poems written from a time of transitions in my life, which are maybe all of our times. But when this book was being written, 2016, 2014, 15, I was coming out of a long period of addiction and recovery that nearly poisoned the well of me. And so this comes from that time of despair, but also from a time of incredible renewal and growth, these early years of recovery when my life was given back to me. I've tried to choose pieces that speak to the searching characteristics of this conclave. I hope that you find something to your liking here. I've always found myself drawn to cathedrals, their stillness, their immensity, their ingenuity. I've often used to sit in Omaha's St. Cecilia's Cathedral with a notebook, hoping to glean something from that rarefied air. And here is one result of those times: a cathedral in Nebraska. I'm not programmed to pray, but my arm hairs bristle in St. Cecilia's as they slide a 10 spot into the pour box, hug one another under rococo vaulting that makes me nearly believe in mathematics. Neck craned, I am proud of myself for this jibe to faith, but I am not so smart. Pulverized my sarcastic brain with booze and worse for several decades, stared and stared at television screens with a lake of fire in my glass while the world went wrong. Yet for all that, I stand here in my sensible shoes, 6 months sober, in a cathedral in Nebraska. I dip my fingers in holy water and hold it, a 30-year agnostic, having absurd epiphanies in cool Catholic air, staring like a statue at the stained glass crucifixion, lamentations of holy women audible, saints up to their beards with worry. Satellites turn and tumble where heaven should be, reflecting our faces back at us while the earth warms like a disco floor. Last week, I watched a widow at prayer, wondered where and how she hurt. Her little back bent over hands clasped around a puddle of rosary beads. How I wanted to go to her, to murmur of the village where yellow flowers once rained from God's otherwise awful sky. A friend read me a poem on those cathedral steps in which flowers were said to have rained from a South American sky. My skeptical mind rejected this as myth, but images have mysterious life and great endurance. And so somehow in the painting of that scene, something numinous held on. And I think I'm always sort of swerving between the sacred and the profane, as yet you'll find from these poems. A year after I found sobriety, my neighbor and a dear old friend found himself, like Dante at midlife, in a dark wood. Trapped in his own illness and desperation, he attempted suicide. His wife and I found him right after that attempt, and we managed to rush him to a hospital. But he was really sort of stained by that act by the illness that led to it. And so he had these kind of lingering pains of depression. He really changed a great deal from a fun-loving, generous friend to someone who was always unsettling to sort of interact with. So after a few months of this time of unrest, a group of Tibetan monks returned to Omaha on their yearly trip, wherein they assemble a mandala of brightly colored sands. Maybe you're familiar with this tradition. After they've painstakingly built this beautiful artifact of colored sand, they sweep it all away. All their hours spent in meticulous attention just wiped away, to remind us of the impermanence of all things, to celebrate beauty without that sort of ache of attachment. And I thought my friend might find some peace, some solace from their peace and the solace that they radiate. So I brought him to the monk's final ceremony, in which the mandala sands were released into the Missouri River. And so this next poem is a remembrance and interpretation of that event. Mandala. Monks wear sensible shoes, and why wouldn't they? Chained to dying animals, just like the rest of us charioteers under meth-white skies, while channelized waters brewed under a bridge named after Bob Carey, whom I happen to admire very much, though when we met in a bland kitchen, he didn't seem so magnetic. The bridge bobs us a bit. Monks in sandals and socks or beat-up tennies chant and shake bells the color of henna over an effluviated waterway with concrete banks in September. Dozens snap selfies at these men who have nothing, release it all in the form of a sachet of colored sand, which ashes its way down to join the river on the way to Kansas City and holy points beyond. They are fat or short or mustachioed like so many spiritual beings, smiling then waving goodbye. Wait, I ask one, please bless my friend. He is very sad. They can't know how much he hates himself, but he gets a blessing and pep talk. When you are sad, everyone around you is sad. People who live in desert see beauty. Women in war cut their breasts to feed babies' blood. They climb into a van and float on radial tires to Cincinnati or somewhere equally enlightened, while we are left to roll back to uncomfortable homes in a comfortable car, with silence and memory for once letting hope do the talking. Our sins sensibly forgiven. Nothing in the mirror but a river of road unspooling. The future a bell that won't stop ringing. I've been married for a long time, and the daily accretion of love and neglect, the heights of communion and the gulfs of separation that ever recur there, they sort of fascinate me. So this next poem seeks to sort of sift the sands of a long marriage, to examine, to celebrate, to mourn that sorrow and that grace, to sing what persists in the hopes of its survival. It's called Renewing the Vows. My marriage is getting big and lust-addled. She swishes past me naked from the belly down, or closes herself into herself, television the only noise. We drink margaritas too often, eat dinner in separate rooms, make amniotic love in the pool, read Lorca aloud in bed at night, sulk and stare into dreams we can never remember. She yells at me to turn down astral weeks. I beg her to call her sister. She drops shoes everywhere, and I pick them up. We put on pounds. We laugh at a comedian's bleak truths. We are inviolate, spinning through St. Cecilia at noon, just us and two wiry widows in that cold heaven. She slams the bedroom door. I stalk outside. She kisses my cheek. We drink beer at a bar, conspiring to drive our crone of a neighbor insane. She berates me for neglecting her plants. I belittle her in front of a dozen friends. She tells me this is what I always do. I tell her she infantilizes me, buys me underwear that is entirely too cute. We watch the Lord of the Rings trilogy every Sunday in January. She orders endless textiles from catalogs. We sway to reggae all through June. She hides from her family, from mine, from everyone. I insult her for refusing to vote. She insults me for believing it matters. We watch seahorses and dragons coalesce in clouds. She used to believe in cloud gazing. Our feet creak every morning. Our throats congeal every night. Gray hairs begin to frame that doll baby face. My back no longer lets me take it for granted. Our mortgage is nearly paid. The lawn grows thick and embarrassed. No one visits. We discuss the merits of quinoa, the verities of booze, the infamy of Republicans. We drive to Hannibal, photograph that tired river town, smell the musk of clemens on every stone. She reads. I fret about my teaching, and she says, I can't help you. She tends patients all day while I walk the dog, graze Facebook, eat organics. We shout, we chortle, we laze, we grunt. I ignore her calls from work. We drive to Zesto twice in one day, sugar sticky on our lips. She refuses to eat Vietnamese. I refuse to stop smoking. The house leaks. The hospital overbills us. We assume old friends will never die. We used to cry together, but it's been moons. Our bikes rust in the garage. We put on the Dead and boogie past midnight. She gets buzzed and remembers her parents, gone now 10 years. We repeat our marriage vows, stare at the pictures of young strangers in the big album. She rubs calamine lotion on my skin. I massage her shoulders. She sings a song about her boobs. I make the bed. She offers me mushrooms. I offer her bread. We fly to Kauai and Craig T. Nelson sits 2 tables away and we say nothing. We kayak down a river, unable to build a rhythm. She endures my snoring. I endure her negativity. We vow to stop drinking for a week. We drink. I caress her face. She kisses me again and again and again. We pick cherry tomatoes. She sews my shirt. I make her an appointment. She tells me my mom is acting funny. She wants to know where I put her iPad. I praise her toes. She tells me to shave. I put her green hat on a statue of Poseidon. She asks me why I never write poems about her. I tell her every poem is about her. Voila. I hope you saw something of yourself in me, in those lines. In this last year of pandemic and isolation, of great concern and loss, my partner has also struggled with an illness so debilitating that she has had to stop working. So now my poems kind of circle this strange new pattern that we find ourselves in, new ways of being, the new aches, and also the new moments of tenderness that we glean from these changes. So I'm going to read 3 new poems to you, if you will allow it. This is called Until Rain Blends Our Blues. In what feels like Earth's last epoch, I just watch your hair kink into curls as you sleep, trying to remember what I was wasting when you rebuilt the retaining wall all those flowers ago. I could steal into your journal. All morning your green eyes frowned over a pen's tremble, some dumb TV show nattering, cluttering our cobwebs. Shuttered beauty, I am kissing those hands that stacked 2,000 bricks, marveling at the rivers without answer, branching blue and sunless below. On good afternoons, we whistle at the moon, bumblebees frizzing in the echinacea. Again and again, I forget to water the tomatoes, the birds, myself. Remind me again how to be decent. Honor your evergreen limbs bounding in time with my wedding reception dance moves. Your stillness as they slipped that needle in your spine. My ritual cleaning of the pick line stiffening your vein. Forgive us brown bagging booze through town, laughing, then screaming, who stared on Vesuvius unbreathing, who drive godless toward another tourniqueted sunset, who will gift these bodies that lolled in Mediterranean foam to be unpuzzled and fed into flames by scientists yet to be born. Wend our way through another Thursday night with soup on the stove and clouds piling up like headstones over our playground that is a cenotaph, a sick ward, a garden. Dream of sidewalk chalk, and I'll write our names on every block so we won't be forgotten until we're forgotten. Just two more for you, friends. I often struggle with insomnia, and on the worst nights, I dig out my phone at 3 a.m. and doom scroll. But it seems a better use of those woebegone nights to write rather than to gaze into the void of the digital, apocalypse. So this next piece comes from a long night last summer when I had the good sense to get out my notebook rather than my phone. So it also, I think, comes from years of disquiet and recovery, right? Which sort of always swirl in me and perhaps in many of you. Up at 4. I spotted the scythe at 1/2 midlife, the 5th of July, in my same old skin, and went to hear the dark rattled by tinnitus, 100 days of pandemic in the annus horribilis. I saw a kitchen light wake up next door. Could be another poet drunk as Lee Poe, scratching sad songs or grocery lists, rocking a child back into the better past. No, just the crack of dishes, the crash of scotch against ice, reminding me of all the ghosts and bed sheets twirling through our rooms. God, grant me the serenity to streak sober through strangers' gardens at dawn, as thorns carve new vows on this body and blood grows more roses. And one last poem for you today, again of marriage, of those years behind us, within us, before us, of what we've had and lost, of what might yet be gathered. Poetry is inherently an act of examination. Wordsworth called it a moment of emotion recollected in tranquility. And I don't know if that suits it, but it's closer than I can try. So here we have a final effort for you, Nocturne. Thank you again to Melanie for inviting me and all of you for welcoming me. I hope I can return to the actual desert city that you have all turned into a beautiful, beautiful garden. Nocturne. Garden reaching under Orion on the hill where we staked our marriage. Your eyes bright even in sleep. Owls 4 o'clock lament settling over ancestral roses. Hard to believe all the absinthe, rot winding through our walls, howling past 40 with so much silt thickening our rivers. Kissing under a rotten trellis, laddered ribs sudden to surface with your sickness. Yet it is easy to be grateful as you tremble over me, my generic name in your mouth. Praise our bright veins laid down into braided creeks, our lips always reaching, ever finding. You, the apple-cheeked orphan, me, the glib fatalist, marking time by huffing up a forest trail, down a dry creek wash, superstructures of starlight wheeling over years of drought and rain. The book is a thing in itself, and it is not me, your old hero Steinbeck said. So this house, cold and hangar-like, or crackling with fire, coddles meanings and still lives we cannot claim to contain. You are not the green bottle of Klonopin. I am not the hollow night. Your belly mole is no tattoo to distract my jeweler's loop, just a koan for a kiss. I fill the bath for cardinals, but only robins come. Yet your voice still drives me through blizzards and parking lots to fetch blackberries and mangoes for the song on your breath. Melody brightening mornings I finally learned to solve sober. Now you flit like a kite above my grave grass and shattered glass, quarantined, without seasons. Still, I praise the constellations we traced from playground swings, praise what we were and are. I praise you, needful as air, always there. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Todd. That was beautiful, deep, vulnerable, honest, and very much relatable. I know I found myself in a lot of that. So how do we close today? Incorporating both light and dark, while imperfectly perfect, let's live out the best of our lives and claim it together in our last song. I'd like to teach you the chorus so that you can sing along. It goes, live out the best of your life. And that's basically the chorus over and over. So sing that with me right now. Try it. Live out the best of your life. And to clarify, we are singing to ourselves while also singing it to each other. So let's do it one more time. Live out the best of your life. All right, here's the song.
All right. Wake up, lay down the burden, leave it alone. It's time to move on. Step up with a light heart, shine it all around into your part. With a word like a prayer, send it out everywhere it will grow. And the truth of this force leads us back to the source we all know. Live out the best of your life. Live out the best of your life. Take a chance and reap the reward. It's yours to be had, what you're looking for. Make it up as you go along. No one can say what's right or what is wrong. With the words like a prayer, send it out everywhere it will grow. And the truth of this force leads us back to the source we all know. Live out the best of your life. Live out the best of your life.
live out the best of your life. With the words like a prayer, send it out everywhere. We will grow, oh, we will grow. And the truth of this force leads us back to the source. We all know it. With the word like a prayer, send it out everywhere. We will grow, oh, we will grow. And the truth of this force leads us back to the source. We all know it. Live out the best of your life. 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 Here we go. Live out the best of your life.
From Reverend Ron Knapp. The poet begins with the world as it really is, with all its chaos, and demands of the world that it become an expression of what it can mean and what it can be. That is the poet's task. I also believe that is religion's task. And now let us read together the words by which we extinguish our chalice. Though we extinguish the chalice, our connection to each other and this community remains. May its light guide us this week as we walk the path of justice, speak words of love, and fill our world with compassion until we meet again. Please stick around for the congregational conversation, which will start in just a few minutes. And then the breakout rooms will actually occur after the congregational conversation. Thank you everybody for being with us this morning, and a special thanks to Todd.